Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in on this lovely Sunday evening. Sunday night for the East Coasters, Sunday evening, I guess, for the West Coasters. Mr. Red Jack 12, good evening to you, sir. Thank you, as always, for stepping in early to give everybody a warm welcome. My pal, Jason Ladwig, good evening, sir. Good to see you. The Rickster, good to see you, Rick. My lovely wife, Vivian, how are you? Good to see you as always. Mr. Easy Go Lucky, good to see you as well. And Marcus, look at that. He's giving you a huzzah. Oh, what is up, Jeff Wedding? Hey, Jeff, you still traveling? Are you on your way home back to Vegas or what? You're on the highway somewhere or are you home already? Let me know. Everybody's just saying hello. I think I missed that joke again. No heart? Who's got no heart? Oh, no hearts here. Yeah, not this week. We'll see if he tunes in to watch and join you guys in the chat, though. I don't know. Just getting back to town. Okay. I checked and I forget who's playing. Marcus will probably tell us, but it was not a matchup I wanted to see. And frankly, I've checked the matchups for the sort of the rest of the season. Shockingly, I may be okay with doing 8 o'clock Eastern starts for the rest of the football season. None of them really grab me from here on in. So we'll see. ComicArtBoston, hello, sir. Good to see you as well. Happy to see you and back from your travels. And I hope you had a wonderful time stateside. And what else we got here? No, like I said, no heart. Yeah. Hopefully heart pops in at some point. And yes. Oh, you know what? Bengals versus Ravens. That's actually probably a good one. I didn't realize that. I saw it earlier about a couple of hours ago, and I was like, wait a second, what am I doing? That's probably going to be a good game. I should have started earlier. Oh, well, no big deal. I'll catch what's left of it once we're done here. But guys, thanks again to those of you who have shown up. Thanks to all of you who are watching on Rewind as well. In particular, to those of you who showed up live, want to say thanks because I know that a lot of people have flown the coop this weekend. A lot of people are in New York for New York Comic-Con and are probably currently either at the airport, on their way to the airport, or heading back to the hotel or going out to dinner right now or what have you. So I expect a smaller than usual crowd today. But hey, such is life. That'll make my guests' nervousness a little more palatable, hopefully. And speaking of my guest, and hello, CJ. Evening. Aloha, Carl. Aloha. My wonderful guest, Jason Hussa, is ready and waiting, so let me not make him wait any longer. And let me bring him in right now. Here we go. Jason!
Hello. Hi, Rubén. Hello, everybody. Hello.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, so many people that have YouTube channels are worried about things like likes and like views and like viewer satisfaction. And having me on is a definitive statement that you're not going to be bothered with such. It's like, as a matter of fact, it's a bracing, endorsement of letting it go. So,
that's funny. Thank you. That's funny. Just real quick, as a little segue, because I just something caught my eye in the comments on my right. CJ, no, that is not true. Absolutely not. I mean, I shave the sides every week just to keep it short, but very rarely trim the top a bit, but whatever. But no, nothing, no new cut really. So, here we go. ComicArtBoston saying hello to you.
ComicArtBoston, good evening, sir.
Rick as well.
Rick, hey.
CJ, everybody. Caesar, what up, Caesar?
Marcus, hey, everybody.
So, so guys, again, thanks everybody for tuning in. This one-on-one series that I'm doing, for those of you who are may not be aware, the basic premise is just simply, as I've said in the past, I love the roundtables. Those are a lot of fun. It's just harder to get that many people in on 1 week, any given week. So that's why I don't do them as often as I'd like to. And it's easier. It is easier. I've been having a good fortune to get one person at a time to agree to come on. So that's kind of the premise behind doing the one-on-ones. And the premise of the one-on-one is just basically to let you guys, the more active members of the comic art collecting community, get to know other members of the community a little bit better, a little bit more in depth than just a simple name on CAF or just another name in the chat, So that's it. And my pal Jason has agreed to come on for this second show. Those of you who have been watching for a while will remember my first one-on-one was the one that I did with Jeff Singh. And that ended up going well, was a lot of fun. One thing I do want to mention, that one, when I rewatched it back, the entire thing is choppy. The video, the audio is fine, but the video is all choppy. Like you if you go to the channel here and you just go and find that video and you play it back on playback, it's all choppy. So I don't know if it was choppy when you guys were watching it, but that's the weird thing is I would expect if it recorded choppy, that means it was playing choppy all the way through. That's what I would think. And if that's the case, the weird thing is I don't remember seeing anybody in the chat saying that it was choppy. That's what's bizarre to me. But anyways, hopefully everything is sounding and looking good now, and that's all that matters. So why don't we get into it? And wanted to mention also, everyone, that the whole point of the one-on-ones, in case you don't know, is again to let you guys get to know these guests more in depth, but simultaneously also to have, I know a lot of people in the hobby, but I try to get friends, right? People who I consider friends to come on too. So it's sort of, it kills two birds with one stone, so to speak. It's just another way to have some fun with a friend of mine. And and like I said, have everybody else get to know that person a little bit more in depth and hopefully make a connection. So that's it. So with that, why don't we get into it? Jason, hopefully you're cool. You made a couple of appearances already on my channel, on that the Mike Perkins, very busy Mike Perkins Sunday about a month ago. So you're already a veteran here. But that was obviously, as you know, mostly commentary on the artwork and asking Mike questions and things of that nature. Tonight, it's obviously a little bit more about you, so the spotlight's a bit more on you. And I know, you mentioned to me ahead of time that, like a lot of people, they're kind of nervous, and that's why a lot of people say no right away. They don't want to be on camera. But you acquitted yourself beautifully on those two shows. So, I have no doubt that this will go just fine. So,
thank you. As a little safety net, we actually have Chris Snork standing by, so that if I go off script here, he's going to jump in with the right answer, like with the Perkins one. So we're in good hands, everybody. Not to worry.
All right, so let's get into this. I guess the best way to start would be, I would like you, if you can, Jason, tell us a little bit about your background. Obviously not, you don't have to tell us what you do for a living or anything like that, but how you first got into comics. But again, this is an art channel, so don't spend too much time on the whole comic thing. But just to get a sense of how, what age you started at, what you were into, did you stop at some point and then restart like a lot of guys did? And then just sort of give us an idea when you discovered the original art, and then subsequently, make that decision to, hey, I'm going to start. I think I'll start collecting this stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. And kind of in preparation, I figured that I would be asked something like this. I started making a mental inventory and going back and trying to place certain issues and everything like that. I got back to Marvel Tales number 60, which came out when I was 4.5. That was, so my mom and I were on a plane heading to Washington, D.C. to see my grandparents. And there was, a big kid behind me. He must have been, 9 or 10. And at the end of the flight, as they were disembarking, they gave me a copy of Marvel Tales number 60. And Maki Poo Poo, hello. And so it was, that's the first one I can remember, but I don't remember feeling like it was an alien world I was stepping into, right? It was like, oh, Spider-Man, who's this? Oh my gosh, that's the Prowler. This is awesome. And the first comic that I remember buying was about a year later when I was 5, and that was Marvel Team Up number 50. That's the one, a beautiful cover with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange on it. And so it wasn't one of those things where it was like, I mean, it looked very interesting to me, but I knew the characters. So I don't know exactly when it started or how.
What about like, so because that sounds like you're describing when you kind of first took actual physical notice of these sort of characters or whatever. Why don't we sort of go more towards when did you first sort of notice them and say to yourself, oh, let me pick this up and you know what, I'm going to buy this one, or was it parents that maybe it was or gave you some comics?
It was sort of always like that. Like when I bought Marvel Team Up number 50, the very next month, I mean, just going my chronological, dates here, was the first comic that I remember ever having sort of fighting for. I mean, I was 5, and it was actually a Luke Cage Power Man number 37, which has the beautiful Gil Kane cover of, Luke doing sort of this backwards somersault and landing inside the car, like breaking through. And there were these 2, I think, drug dealers. And I think my parents were a little bit less than thrilled that was my choice, right? It's like, really, like the drug dealer, I don't know, but they did relent. They were all about, my kid reading and everything like that. And I think the end of that issue actually has Luke Cage sinking into like Camistro, I think, turns the sidewalk into quicksand. And so he sinks down into that. And I was so distraught. I was so traumatized. I'm sure my parents had a told you moment, right? But my grandparents happened to be there that evening, and they took me back to the 7-Eleven where I got it, and they bought me a copy of Marvel 2-in-1 number 21 that had the Thing and Doc Savage, and that was a little bit, that was sort of had a happy ending.
Doctor Strange, you mean?
Doc Savage, actually, it was.
Oh, it was Doc Savage. Yeah. I forgot for a while they had the license. Yeah.
They did, and so. And that was November of 76, apparently. So that was when I was like 5 years old. So those, and it's been all my life. I've always read comics. When I went to college, I stopped reading Marvels, but I kept on, I read Cerebus and Love and Rockets and lots of indie stuff that at that time, it just, I wasn't that intrigued with the Marvel comics, but I went through and read primarily indies until the late 90s when kind of everything kind of started getting back and going. Yeah, I mean those were great years.
So you would say like throughout the 80s? So the vast majority of the 80s you were doing primarily indies?
No, I was I think the last issue of the X-Men that I bought like off the stands was 227. That was when I was a senior in high school. So that would have been like I graduated in 1988 and went to college then. And so then there was a little comic store next to, close to the campus. And I would go there, and that's where I find Cerebus, and I found a Dark Tangent, which is a Foglio and Fref. It was just something I hadn't, just lots of good stuff there.
But was that your first comic shop though?
No, the first comic shop was Midway Book on Snelling Avenue in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I should check and see if it's still there. We went there all the time, and my dad would make these weekly trips there. My parents were divorced, and my dad took us there after school on Friday, and we could pick out some comics. And so that's what got me through.
That's nice, though. That's nice, Dad. Wow,
it was cool. It was
yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. Holy crap! I mean, a weekly trip by your dad of all people. Like
I know.
I come from the opposite to that, right? My story's the opposite. So it's like when I hear people saying, their parents were doing that kind of stuff, I'm like, what? Wow, that's amazing. So
it was. My parents had split up. I mean, they never looked down on my interest in comics, and they were
Good thing.
yeah, exactly. There was one brief moment where Mom said, "Okay, you can have 3 titles a month," and that just that didn't last for very long. Like that was, but I don't know if my dad taking me to the comic store was like a hey, kind of, we're going through a divorce. It's probably hard on the kids, and so let's just kind of try to make this as good as possible. So it was. I've always been grateful, and it was throughout my whole life. He always. When I got married, he gave me for my gift. He gave me a $200 gift certificate to Bud Plant Comic Art. Right. So
how many dollars?
I don't know. I want to say 200. I don't think it was. Wow. Maybe it was 100. It was okay. Like some just lovely. It was just lovely gift.
That would have been what year?
That was 2000. And then he passed away like a month and a half later.
Okay.
So it was.
I did hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have loved him. He was awesome. He was great.
Oh, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. Yeah. Okay. And so from there, at what stage do you? Well, first of all, while you were reading comics for many years, were you aware, or I guess at what time did you become aware of, that there's actual people that take blank boards and just start, they take a script and start, right. Were you always aware of how comics were created, or was it something that a lot of collectors, they told me, just something I never thought about. I never even thought about it. It's just, comics just appear in the store and there they are, and so they came to it really, really late. How was it for you in terms of discovering the art form and how it's created,
Yeah, that's another great question. When I was in second grade, we had an author, a children's book author. She illustrated and wrote her books, and I can't remember her name. It was in second grade, but our teachers made a big point about letting us know that these children's books that you find, they are made by human people, like creative human people. And, they don't just appear by magic. There's the magic of creativity, but it's like people work very hard to do this. And, this author came, she was awesome. She spoke in our class. She drew in all of our journals, like a little piece of a little character that we requested, or like, I want a hairy spider or something like that. She would do it. Very kind and generous with her time and talent. And I remember the teachers just really making that point that there are real people that do this. Probably so that we could go, hey, I could do that then, right. we would grow up and do that. So I'm guessing that it may have been right there that I said, well, if these cool children's books are made by real people, then even cooler comic books should be made by real people, right? And right. So because it's one of those things where sort of like comics, I just feel like I've always kind of been aware that people make them,
right.
But it was kind of crazy. It was like I didn't know where to go to find any of that stuff. When I was in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, my parents would just take me and drop me off in front of wherever there were a couple comic conventions. I was living in St. Paul at the time, and every once in a while there'd be a comic convention. They would just take me and drop me off, in front of a hotel or wherever it was in the little ballroom, and just, okay, we'll be back in a couple hours. And
right.
I'll just go in and kind of be able to look around. I don't remember seeing original art there. I'm not sure how I knew about it, but I remember just sort of knowing about it or just guessing it. There was Jack Kirby. There was that movement to get Jack Kirby back his artwork, in sort of the mid 80s. And so that really put a fine point on the fact that there is artwork out there that was created by these people. I don't know if I had heard about, Neil Adams and Siegel and Schuster. That was more, or Siegel and Schuster, listen to me, but it was more,
well, Marcus, just so you know, Marcus, he always thought it was robots,
right?
But in fairness, Marcus also admits he was dumb.
I can't believe that was ever the case.
Now,
Jack Kirby was like a robot, right? My goodness.
Yeah, but speaking of dumb, Mr. Redjack says that the comic store delivered them when it got tired of delivering babies.
Sure.
So, you know, I don't know what world these guys lived in, but certainly wasn't the same one we did, I guess, you know.
I don't know. That sounds pretty good to me. Robots.
I must admit, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea, actually.
That's wicked cool, man.
All right. But, like CJ says, oh, my friends and I did our own comics. Yeah. I mean, I actually have run into a lot of people over the years that said the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know if he told that. I don't think he told that story. But Mike Perkins, that's how he kind of got started. He was drawing probably started picking up a pencil when he was like 3 years old or whatever. And by the time he was like, I don't know if it was grade school or high school. I can't remember, but fairly early on, he started drawing his own little comics, and he would like attach it with like a candy bar or something, and he'd try to sell it to the kids or something at school or whatever.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So people, some people did it that way, and others, well, took them. They waited for the stork to arrive, I guess.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
And new comic, robot storks. See, that sounds like a great '80s independent title, right?
Well,
that should be around.
Another one, like we need like adolescent kung fu, robot storks or something like that. Then you've got your '80s, indie comic there.
Okay, and so from there, at what point then do you see original art for the first time? I don't mean like for the first time in your life, obviously, because at this point you're kind of aware of what's going on. When is that time where you see it and it makes you go, yeah, I think I'll buy this, It
was a long time, Rubén, like way after I knew about it, for sure. I mean, like the first time I remember, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger on this. I was living in Minneapolis. It was probably 1993 or 94. And I was subscribing to the Comics Buyer's Guide, which was like this newspaper. It was awesome. It had some reporting in it. It was really good.
Most of us know what the CBG is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And so there were all these ads in there, and I remember seeing one. I think it was for like they had 4 Jack Kirby pages, and I believe even the verbiage was around Thor 150. Like it didn't even have specific issue numbers or pages. It was like around 4 of them, and I think they were like $150 a piece. And I remember going, I just would like to own some. Like I don't think I'd even seen any original art at that time. Right. And I talked myself out of it. I was like, I'm going to do that, because it was like there was no internet, and it was like, so I'm going to send. Like that would be almost all of my entire paycheck to this person at a PO box. And so I remember I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm totally going to do it. And then I just sort of stepped it back. And
wait, person at a PO box in a classified ad in the CBG. Oh, I feel some interesting comments coming into the chat. Very interesting.
Undoubtedly.
About certain people. Okay. Yeah. Go on.
I've always wondered, what pages those would, but I mean, I remember, talking myself out of that. Yeah. Right. ComicArtBoston. Thank you. It was great. It was really, really cool. That was the first time. And I can just imagine, like, I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't really know even the size of it. And I just imagine if it would have been this enormous box, because it would have been probably, I don't know, 150 probably would have had some regular sizes. Right. But right around there, it would have been it would have blown my mind. I mean, I just wanted something that I just wanted that tie, a little closer tie to the artist, right? It's like, oh man, Jack Kirby's hand was on this page, and like his sweat, he would have sweated on it. Like his DNA is in this page. I just wanted
he would have sweated on it.
Yeah. I just wanted that connection, just a little bit closer tie. And so I've always wondered, what pages were those, and regretted that. But then I think if I had gotten those, I might not have gotten like the second pieces that I ever went for. And that's really kind of where it started for me. Like the first one.
And sorry, but maybe I missed it. So when you were looking at CBG and you first noticed that the classified ad, with the advertisement for the original art, what year would that have been?
It would have been, it would have been 93 or 94.
Oh, okay.
93 or 94.
Okay.
It could have been early 95. I don't think so. I think it was 93 or 94.
Okay. Yeah, because it's funny. A lot of people are saying, how much they love CBG and how great it was, and I gotta stick my 2 cents in as well. So I've said it in the past that more than once probably, that for me, reading about the industry was even more enjoyable than reading the comics themselves. So yeah, so I would get my comics every week. As let's say, like when I got into my later teens and I started having more money, right, where I can collect more stuff. So I could pick up my books every week, and I would, like a lot of people, I would place them in order from worst to best. Okay, that's how I did it. That's just how I did it. Okay. So the stuff I wanted to read the most, I actually saved it for last. And believe it or not, the CBG, Amazing Heroes, Comics Interview,
Oh yeah.
all those prosing style type things about comics, those are at the very bottom of the pile. So I would want to blow through the comics to get to the stuff about the comics and
Right.
read behind the scenes, what's happening with this artist or writer, whatever. And yeah, I just loved it, man.
Yeah, I totally subscribed to Amazing Heroes for a couple of years too. Pass those around around my friends, and we did that. I was a little bit too young for the Comics Journal. That was just a little bit too.
Me too. Yeah. Well, we'll say it was a little too highbrow, right? But at the same time, and I don't care, I'll say it now, it was unbelievably, even to this day. Now that I'm older and I kind of can understand it better, unbelievably pretentious to me. And the thing is that I remember reading articles in there where Gary Groth is complaining about mainstream comics all the time, calling them pretentious, and I'm like, you're the pretentious motherfucker. Like you know what I mean?
I'm not. You're pretentious. Yeah.
Not me. You are. Yeah.
That is a highbrow debate, there, isn't it? Yeah. That bar high. You're pretentious. Yeah.
But seriously, like I Carl says, damn, I threw away my stacks and stacks of CBG. Well, they take up a lot of room, so
I've still got some. Same with my Amazing Heroes, and I think the first issue of Comics Journal I got was there was one, I think, in 1986 or 85. It was right when Marvel was launching the Epic line, or not the Epic line, but those epic graphic novels of Mobius's. So the Comics Journal did a Mobius interview, and I have that one, and that one was really exciting because that was my first foray into the Comics Journal, and I was like, wow. I mean, there's an entire universe there, and I mean, there were pictures in that magazine with naked girls drawn, Rubén. You wouldn't believe it. Yeah, so it was like, wow. I mean, just the whole world had comics. There were Belgian comics, and there were just all. It was really exciting. It was really cool, and that's, I think, maybe what pushed me.
Eye-opening.
Yeah.
Eye-opening. Look what ComicArtBoston says. So Comic Journal did contain many articles that were too abstract and saw things that were never there. I agree. It's like I felt like they read too much, too deeply into what they were reading. Like, they're just comics, guys. They're just comics. It's like these guys would review constantly Marvel and DC comics and just do nothing but complain about them. Right. And it's like, well, nobody said this was highbrow literature, but it's comics. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good, whatever. Right.
I think their point was that it could be, right, and that's what they wanted it to be. And so I thought it was a noble cause. There was so much stuff I just didn't know about. I never subscribed to comics. I would only pick up an issue if, like, there was a Dave Sim interview or something like that I could see. I mean, I did subscribe to Comics Journal later, and I really enjoyed it. I did. There was a really fun run with Stan Sakai and Barry Windsor Smith, and a Gil Kane interview. It was right after Gil Kane had passed, and it's just this lovely little pocket of great stuff that I just happened to be interested in too. So it was really fun digging into that, where I was a little bit older and could, oh my gosh, this is I enjoyed it, if only because it was everything in the context of this can be art, and it should be art. And right. I remember there was a Bill Sienkiewicz editorial drawing in there of like Batman chained to like this desk or something, and there was a Bill Sienkiewicz sort of dotted line down the room, and it was like serious art and Sunday morning cartoons or Saturday morning cartoons, and Batman was trying to get over to the serious art. This was right when Dark Knight Returns came on, and there was a large Bill Sienkiewicz woman over on the cartoon side saying, "No, we mustn't go over there," or something. The whole point being that comics could be this thing.
Yeah.
And I think the Comics Journal was, I don't mean to speak for them. They are, more than equipped and eloquent to do it themselves. But I think their point was that this could be, and they were just pushing as hard with everything they got to make it.
I get that. I get that. But the thing is just like every time, because look, like ComicArtBoston says, right? He did purchase it occasionally because they had great interviews. And I also will throw in my 2 cents and say, I also occasionally bought it, regardless of what I said previously, for the same reason, because sometimes they still had some great interviews,
Right.
But I guess my whole point is just that I felt that they spent, because look, even though I rarely bought it, I still, when I would go to the store, when the issue would come in every month, I would still look at it every single month. I would flip through it because I wanted to see, is there anything in here that I will like enough to maybe to buy it,
Right.
And I just thought by flipping through it every month, the impression I had and still have to this day, as I remember it from back then, was that overall, they just spent every month complaining about mainstream comics. Like you say, talking about how, but they could be so much better. And the art form is there and it's ripe to be taken and molded and blah, 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 right?
Right.
But it's like, okay, yes, it's a great art form. We know that, fine. But to have a magazine that all it does is complain every month after month after month about mainstream comics, it's like, enough already. Enough already. Like you want to spend a few issues talking about how wonderful and unbelievably amazing things like Dark Knight were. Okay, whatever. But it gets to the point where, yeah, I loved Dark Knight when it came out and all that. But over the decades, the more that people would use it as an example, as the example of something to like when people make fun of you and say, oh, you read comics, right? And you want to say, oh, no, comics are not just for kids anymore. Like you used to think, oh, no, look at this, Dark Knight. I always had a problem with that because one comic book 4-issue series does not represent the overall whole of comics,
Right.
And so it would piss me off because that's not enough. If that person who makes fun of comics and makes fun of the art form, if they want to get heavier and deeper into it, and all you can do is show them Dark Knight or, oh, what about this? Watchmen. Those are exceptions. Those are exceptions. Those are 2 exceptions, right?
There's, what, you
gotta, I guess what I'm trying to say is I just want to say you've got to be able to prove to sort of to make your argument worth something, right? Give it weight, gravitas, if you will. You have to be able to show somebody how a random mainstream comic, let's say a run or a single issue, whatever, a story from a regular mainstream superhero comic book, show them that. Show them more examples of that. That's the only way you're going to sort of potentially change people's viewpoints is what I'm saying. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's great. When I was probably a sophomore in high school, I was bringing in my comics, and it would be stuff like Mage, and it would be Cerebus, and it was like there was a great Titan Books reprint of the DR and Quinch series, the Alan Moore and Alan Davis, all the 2000 AD progs, just the DR and Quinch stories, and that made the rounds of all my friends, and there was John Byrne's Fantastic Four and Frank Miller's Daredevil and Walt Simonson's Thor right then. So I was able to do that with my friends. Like they would show me stuff that I hadn't read, but I would bring stuff in. I met my wife, actually. I met her. I was a junior. She was a freshman. Yeah. In the same high school. And I was like, I think you'll really like this. And I gave her Mage, and she loved it, and so there are those examples out there. It's not Dark Knight is awesome and Watchmen is awesome, but there are, other great ones.
Hold on, you're kind of making my point for me.
Okay.
You're making the point that, again, you're reaching for another one of those examples that I will categorize as the exception. What I'm saying is most readers were reading, Marvel, whatever, any number of their, 70 titles per month they published, or any number of the 60 or 70 titles DC published. So what I'm talking about is that's what most of us read. Okay. I read Independence too, whatever, right? But most people, the highest selling comics, let's say throughout the 80s, 70s, 80s, whatever, were standard mainstream superhero comics. So what I'm saying is when somebody, you feel like somebody's backing you up against the wall and, ooh, comics are for kids, you read that stupid shit, right?
Yep.
I feel like you got to be able to bring up an example or examples literally from mainstream. Grendel or Mage is not mainstream to me. I'm talking, you got to be able to quickly pull up, hey, you know what? If you read this, I think you'll find this is adult. It's not for children. Children wouldn't get most of this. And I'm talking about a series of issues from, I don't know, Daredevil that isn't Born Again, and that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Anywhere else in the run, stop choosing the obvious choices all the time and show, because you can read almost any comic. And I remember from when I was in the starting to read in the early 80s, I felt like most comics were written for 17, 18-year-old as a minimum and above. That's the impression I got. I never felt once that comics were written for 6 to 8-year-olds like they used to be in the late 30s, into the 40s, into the 50s. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's what I'm saying. I just feel like we can't, Marcus was saying, Gary Groth would champion Love and Rockets. Exactly. I know that. And I've only ever read the first issue. Didn't understand what the worst comic I ever read in my life, by the way.
Oh, dear.
The first issue. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. The black and white first issue.
Yeah.
So didn't understand a thing I read there. From panel to panel, I was lost. I was so confused and bored out of my mind, whatever. Now, I know that when I've seen other issues, they look like a normal comic compared to what I saw in that first issue. So it's probably some weird experimental crazy shit they were doing, the brothers. I don't know. So I've never given it a chance beyond that because I was so turned off by that first issue,
It's fantastic, Ruben. It's really great. It's really great. And I think my impression of that first issue, and we're getting off course here, sorry, but it was this explosion, right? They had all of this material pent up over years and they just got it out. And it is awesome. Like, it is so good. And also back what you were saying about, no, I just want to hand someone the run of what was going on at that time. That was Walt Simonson Thor going on. It was after Miller's first run, before his second, before Born Again. But Byrne's Fantastic Four was going on at that time. So that would have been, I mean, the thing is, no one cared. All high schools are very cliquish and everything like that. And back then, being a nerd or, loving this stuff, it wasn't a thing. And there was nobody coming up to me going, hey, I noticed you read comic books. Please defend that stance. Show me something that's going to impress me. There was complete indifference whatsoever. But I could have done what you suggest and given them Fantastic Four, Alpha Flight. I love John Byrne. Who didn't love John Byrne?
Right.
And it was all month to month. That stuff was coming out there.
Right.
There's great stuff coming out now too. I'm not saying back when
No, I get it. Yeah.
Also, I know. Roamed the plains.
I get it. I just wanted to leave this up here for a while, just to give you a chance to finish saying what you were saying. Mickey, I just wanted to say, so he had a subscription like you did, Jason, to the Comics Journal, read every issue and enjoyed most of the articles. I just want to ask you, Mickey, did you at any point, just be honest, and it's okay if the answer is no or if it's yes, whatever. At any point, as you would read this every month, you didn't feel at any point that Gary Groth is full of shit, like he's got his nose up in the air, you know, like he's just too good for this stuff, like mainstream comics is just right debasing the art form? And didn't you feel at all that it was about, you know, him trying to make us like there's another great comment here by ComicArtBoston. So many of the book reviews were unreadable and made me feel dumb, as they made me feel that I did not understand the book concerned. Again, a perfect comment for me, because I echo ComicArtBoston's comment. Exactly. I felt the same thing. And I always felt like I was a person of above average intelligence, even as a teenager, and reading that stuff, that's kind of how I felt. Like, I'm like, what am I not getting here? Like, he made me feel like, what am I missing exactly? Like, and it's kind of like it goes back to what ComicArtBoston said earlier about it just seemed like he was getting so deep into it, he was seeing things that were not there. That's how I felt anyways, and apparently I'm not the only one. So and ComicArtBoston said, I still don't understand that. And by the way, let me just tell you all, I'm not going to give you, you know, ComicArtBoston's, he likes his privacy. I'm not going to tell you anything about him. I just will say, knowing him as long as I've known him, I can tell you he's a very intelligent person and well-educated person. So this is my point, right? Like, even highly educated and intelligent people often would be like, what? Don't even understand what this guy's trying to say or whatever. You know, that's just the feeling I got, you know?
Sure. I actually had a subscription to Amazing Heroes, not the Comics Journal. I would just pick that up every once in a while. Amazing Heroes was more my speed, you know, as, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, Mr. Redjack says a good point. I liked it when they reviewed the indie comics because it helped me break away from the big two. Good point. I will say for myself, I was in the shop every week anyway, so I can't attribute my discovery of the indies during the 80s to you know, the Comics Journal or any kind of prozine. I just discovered it by looking at what was out on the stands every week, you know, and then picking everything up, looking through it, and hey, looks interesting. Maybe I'll buy it, or I'll try it, or whatever, you know.
I didn't have any
good for that.
Right, the nearest comic store for me was 2 hours away, and much like today, actually. And so it was but so we had the sort of the local selection of what was down at the Safeway or Thriftway, right? Just everything bent, you know, as people are pawing through the turnstiles and the racks, right, and things. And but we would go into Portland every once in a while, and my friends would go, and they would bring back these treasures, right? That's so it was. Yeah. I never had the that experience where I had a regular store like I did when you know, my parents got divorced, but then when my mom moved, which was shortly after that, I lost access to that comic store, that most valuable of treasures.
Right. Marcus says, I don't know which examples you're referring to. Were you referring to like when I said just pick random issues from a Daredevil that aren't like Born Again or whatever, stuff like that, Marcus? Let me know. But
it's been the same for me. I know what he's talking about. Yeah, he means that. Yeah.
I mean, I get his point. Yeah. What else do we have here? Let's just check a couple of comments because I am a little bit behind on your comments, guys. Sorry about that. Love the Vertigo line, Mr. Redjack. Yeah, so much more interesting. Personally, I left comics in '93, so I kind of missed the whole Vertigo thing myself. But yeah, from by all accounts, I mean, Karen Berger just did a phenomenal job building that from nothing. Mm-hmm. Kind of all starting off with Saga of the Swamp Thing and turning that into Vertigo, basically, you know. Yeah. But CJ's got a good, okay, that's a kind of a fun example, right? Yeah, a couple of random issues from Amazing Spider-Man in the 70s, only 2 issues. And yeah, I that's a good example. I feel like if somebody who's, you read comics, right? if they were open-minded enough to at least sit and read a couple of comics, I have no doubt that they would either not want to lose face and still tell you, oh, that was stupid. After reading those 2 issues, that was crap. That's not for adults, right? Because they don't want to lose face. Or if they were honest enough, I absolutely believe that those 2 issues would be like, yeah, that's actually not what I expected. I think they would tell you, hey, that's definitely not for children. You know what I mean?
I was actively trying to give them those indies because sort of everyone knew, Spider-Mans and everything like that. And I just thought maybe show them something different. Maybe that will.
I mean, Mikhail.
So, hey,
sorry, Mikhail just came in. Sorry, and I corrected myself because I missed.
Okay. That's worthy of any interruption. Absolutely.
Sorry. So keep going.
Oh no. So I was actively choosing to show people the indie comics and stuff like that because I thought that might be more interesting. Like, yeah, Spider-Man's really great, but here's DR and Quinch, or here's look at this, a magic baseball bat, and it's like the art is beautiful, and the storytelling is so much different. It was I don't know. So I was actually trying to, I guess, convert people through indie comics rather than. I mean, I love mainstream comics. That's what most of my buddies read. But when I was, trying to impress this really pretty girl, I was going for Mage, and I was going for things that I thought that, would be. And I was grateful to have those things, those indie comics I mean, showing myself as cool is right out because I'm trying to impress this chick with comics, right?
Right.
So that's just out. That's not even. But it's like I really think you might enjoy this because it's really cool, and comics are not just for kids.
No, that's cool. I love that story. And you told that to me privately when we chatted once, and I was like, that's awesome. I love that. That's a good story.
Thank you.
Mickey says, okay, so he's answered my question. So Mickey did recognize that Gary was very snobbish. That's kind of what I was saying with the whole, nose up in the air type of thing, that attitude. But he likes to listen to different viewpoints. Yeah, no, I can't say anything against that for sure. It's good to listen to different viewpoints. Absolutely. What else do we got here? Marcus says that it's like he knew it wasn't made by robots. And Carl says he doesn't want me to hold back. He feels I've been holding back too much. I usually do. I like to.
Sure. Leave the audience wanting more. It's
yeah.
It's cold, man. It's cold.
I don't like to get riled up and rile other people up, So
Sure.
I try to be very conservative about my thoughts and views on things. So, and ComicArtBoston says, Mickey, I think that's on the money. He also liked to stir the pot. That's very true. Perhaps you should forget about TGC and get back to he wants to know, by the way. Oh yeah, see, that's another. Marcus says it's another expression that I use. All the hoity-toity titles. That's how I felt that Groth in his comics journal was very, hoity-toity, noise up, the nose up in the air. Yeah, whatever. But whatever. ComicArtBoston wants to know though, Jason, did you read Bone?
I did. I really did. I loved it. Of course, the Dave Sim in the back of Cerebus would have these just little previews of indie comics, and I found out about THB there, Paul Pope's THB, and I mean so many other things. And so I think I went to the store, and the first issue of Bone I got was like number 6 or something, because I think that's when maybe that preview came out. So yeah, Bone, of course. Yeah, love Bone. And Russell afterwards. And I got Tukey. I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to do that. Yeah, all of Jeff Smith's stuff.
And he says that it was a great series to introduce others to, and it never failed. Here's a little addendum to that, if I may. So I've never read it. Okay, I've never read Bone. No, never read Bone. And over the years, not in recent years, but I would say like in the early 2000s to mid 2000s, I had quite a few people say, "Hey, you should try Bone. Did you read Bone? You should try Bone." And what happened was it was weird because I knew what Bone was in terms of, it's that little ghost-looking Casper-looking character or whatever, right? And they'd be like, "Yeah." I go, "Oh, okay, but it looks like it's not for kids." And they're like, "No. It's like it's You can read it. It's for it might look childish, but it's for adults. I'm like, okay. So back in those days, I still used to go to bookstores, physical bookstores, right? So I went to a bookstore, and I just like to look myself. I figure I don't want to waste my time waiting to find somebody who's working there to get them to help me. So I just go to the graphic novel section. I don't see it. I'm like, wow, they don't have Bone, so it can't be that good. See, that's what I'm thinking at this point, right?
Right.
It can't be that good if this giant book chain in my city doesn't have it.
It's probably sold out, Rubén.
Well, no, here's the thing. So back then, I used to go, I actually used to pay a visit to that bookstore every week.
Okay.
One day, I happened to be looking for a gift for a younger person, a child. So I'm in the child section. And guess what I find in the child section? But this monstrous tome called Bone.
Right.
I'm like, oh man, whoever that guy was who told me it was for adults, man, he doesn't know what he's talking about. This is obviously for kids. It's in the kids section,
Right.
And that's why, and then, more people, when I told that to people, they would say, no. They look at it and the bookstore thinks it looks like it's for kids. And that's why they put it there. It's just badly placed. But they said, it's, but what I've been since told is that it's not that it's for adults. It's just also, it's not for kids, but it's for all. So it's like an all ages thing. So kids can read it and understand it apparently.
Yeah.
But it's not childish so that adults can enjoy it as well.
It's really good. The arc that sorry.
No. I'm just saying, does that describe it pretty well?
Yeah, the arc that the story follows, it's sort of like Lord of the Rings in terms of the scope, like where it starts and you start with the hobbits and then you meet Aragorn and then it just sort of, where am I? And then it just sort of billows out from there. That's a lot like Bone, where you've got the first couple trades and it's like, oh, it's fun. It's this nice little valley. And then the world just starts exploding exponentially along the sides and you just see what a lovely and an incredible world has been built there. But so I think you should read it and I think you'll love it. But before you do, there was this great article about it that you should read first in the Comics Journal that no, just kidding. It was
Mark says I want it collected for Christmas. Speaking of collected, so is that all it is? The whole series? Because what I saw literally was probably like 2 to 3 inches thick. It was like this big tome. Is that the only one? Is that one and done, or is there like multiple volumes like that?
I think there were like 9 trades that were not that size.
Oh,
that's
the regular
all
trade.
9 altogether. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think I could be wrong. That's not including the sort of apocryphal, tall tales and stuff like that that comes after it. I think there's 9 things, and you could get them either in black and white. They did an awesome job coloring. I think Steve Haymaker did that, or Hamaker, however you say it. And
sorry. These guys, they're clowns. They're like born clowns.
Yeah, it's Bone, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so CJ says, going to the bookstore and ask for Bone book, you might end up in the very wrong area. Yeah.
It's very true.
Okay, so Marcus says it was about 55 issues or so.
I think it was like 75? Was it 75? I want to say 75. I could be wrong. Marcus is probably right.
Okay, so ComicArtBoston's telling me it's complete.
Yeah.
In that that big giant tome. Yeah. And it was a soft cover, by the way. I remember it being a soft cover.
Yeah. He does have a hardcover version as well. But it's
so CJ says touche cab. Okay. So, and of course, Marcus, he wants to get Bone. ComicArtBoston 75. Okay. So 75. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that thing was thick, but it didn't feel like it would have been 75 regular length comics. I think it feels like maybe 40 or 50. Like, it's hard to imagine that even in as thick as it was, it's hard to imagine 75, 20 or 22 page comics.
I don't know the paper quality or how thick that paper is. I know that Jeff Smith said they had to go to Bible printers to print it because it was so thick that they needed to go and go to the people that are used to binding, enormous sheets of paper like that. So maybe the paper is really thin. I'm not saying that Jeff Smith said they used the same paper that they just needed to go and check out the experts that published Bibles.
Right. That's interesting. Good evening, David. Good to see you, my friend.
Hello.
Okay, so NSN art is telling me just get it. Don't worry about the number of issues. And ComicArtBoston is correcting himself. Once again, Marcus has come in with the correct information. It is 55.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marcus.
Okay. So I can believe it a little bit more now that 55 is easier, definitely easier to believe than 75.
Sure. But, you guys didn't get issues 56 through 75? Wait a second. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're the only one. Just for you.
It's great. I can't believe you get. Oh, the regular version's 55. Oh, sure, the regular. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, 55. That's totally right. Yeah.
All right. So everybody in the chat, everybody watching, and those of you especially also watching on Rewind, thank you for allowing us this, because I know that it's an original art content channel, and we spent a lot of time talking about books. But you know what? It kind of bugs me a little bit when we get on these sort of off topics and we do talk about comics, right? And people get sort of upset and, okay, get back to the art, whatever. We all started with comics. It's what led us to the art in the first place. It'd be nice to occasionally allow us the ability to just go off on a little tangent and talk about comic books themselves, right? As long as it's interesting or whatever. But anyways, thank you to those of you who are only here for the art talk.
I apologize. My apologies.
But no, it's not. Don't apologize. I'm glad it happened. It's fun sometimes, Thank you, Nick. Good evening. Thank you, my friend.
Hello,
and David says, nice to know Jeff Smith's new book will be received. And thank you, Carl. Thank you, man. Thank you. At least there's somebody who had fun, even though we were not talking about artwork in specific. So I appreciate that, Carl. Thank you. And good evening to you, Marty. Good to see you, my friend. And let me see. Marcus says, no Jeff Smith Bone published art. Oh, is he another one of those guys who kept it all and decides he's going to keep it or send it off to some library or the Billy Ireland or at some point?
University of Ohio. I think it's at the University of Ohio now.
Oh, there you go. The Billy Ireland. Yeah. Oh, University of Ohio, or you mean Ohio State University?
That's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And of course, I was waiting for Stanley to to chime in with his only art here. I know.
Sorry, Stanley.
I'm sorry, man.
My bad.
I know. You're just gonna have to put up with it every now and then, Stanley. Come on, man. And yeah, like CJ says, come for the art, stay for the wacky banter. Exactly. There you go.
And that's just the chat.
Yeah, man. So, okay. So why don't we go from there and segue to what was your very first piece of original art?
Sure. You betcha. Yeah, that was, I think, after having made those moves towards the Jack Kirby, then I didn't actually buy a piece of art, I think, until like...
Hold on. Did you, sorry if I didn't get this. In the end, you did or you didn't? You went?
I did not.
Okay.
I talked myself out of it.
Okay. But that was because of the fear of, hey, am I going to actually get anything sent to me? Is that kind of, oh,
yeah. It was that, because I just didn't know.
I admit the same thing even back then. See, I had bought my first piece in 1990. Okay. But I bought it in person at a convention, right, in New York.
Cool.
So while I was reading the CBG in 1990, 91, 92, 93, right before I stopped collecting, I mean, I'm seeing all these ads for original art all the time, and they're exciting. I used to love looking through them and trying to picture, oh, wow, he's got that. Oh, wow, he's got the original to that. Wow, right? It was fun. And I thought, God, I should save up some money and get some more of this stuff, But just like you, for the same exact reason, I'm like, I grew up in an era, like we're basically the same age. And in our era, we were told, you don't give your credit card over the phone to people. You don't do mail order, right? Especially if it's a PO box, you don't send to a PO box. People are going to steal from you, And that was the reason for me. I was like, how do I know this guy's not going to, cash the money order, cash the check, and then it's over. You have nothing.
Right.
there's no recourse, right?
Yeah,
So
no address even. I mean, it was, yeah, it's hard. But then I don't know why, but I never really followed up on
I'm
but,
sorry.
yeah,
Look at Rick's comment. Look at Rick's
that's
comment.
it. That's it.
Take
Go
the
on
money and
and
run
run.
with the
That's it.
big on. That's awesome. That is so awesome.
Let me tell you a story about
Sorry.
a guy named Rubén. Yeah. The it was finally, I think it was December of 2000 that I said, okay, it's now, or like, this is it. This is now. Like, I don't know why so much time had elapsed before I went for it again. Maybe I was I didn't have much money and everything like that. And I got to a point where I had seen, I had found Albert's site online and looked at some of that stuff, but it was actually, I reached out to Mike Berkey first. And it was actually, I ended up getting 2 pages of from Tales of Suspense number 48. Like there were Steve Ditko pages inked by Dick Ayers that were the first ones with the new armor. There's one in my gallery.
Don't you? I was gonna say, don't you have at least one of those in your gallery?
Yeah, I got one, and I did end up trading the following page. But I have the one, and it was awesome. It was one of those things where it was like, well, I really can't afford one, but he gave me a really nice deal on if I bought both of them. It was like, well, I can't afford one, but I can't afford to not buy both of them. It was one of those things. Probably that he's Mike Berkey's so good at what he does, right? And so it was.
And can I ask, just out of curiosity?
Sure.
You're saying that was your very first transaction for a piece of original art?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
and did you contact him through email, or did you decide I'll pick up the phone and call?
It was email. It was an email thing. And I don't remember. I'm trying to remember maybe it was an ad in the back of CBG or something like that. And I just, I think there were a couple of, I remember there was a page, a Tales to Astonish page, a Ditko Hulk Tales to Astonish page that was up at auction. And I remember writing him one time and saying, oh, wow, hey, did you see this one? He was like, yeah, I used to own that book. And that was, and I was, and that blew my mind, right? Like this was the first time I had conversed with anyone who knew anything about original art. Yeah. And he was always very kind with his answers and a complete gentleman. And it was a pleasure buying those pages. I'll always be grateful because it still is just, a really lovely thing. And then after that point, it was like, the bug didn't bite. I mean, it was sort of like I got Ditko pages. He had sweated on those pages. It's all there. And
there's that sweat again. You just love artist sweat.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Well, yeah, that's it. And you can see the pencils. You can sort of see the pencils on there, and really totally cool. And it might have been because I just didn't have a lot of money or something, but it was like every subsequent page I bought, it was like, a year or two would pass and be like, hey, I got some money back on my taxes. I'm going to go get a George Perez Avengers, volume 3 Avengers page, and I got a from Anthony, and did that a couple times. And then, and it was actually, the bug didn't really bite until the first time I wasn't able to get a page I wanted. Because it was like, I'd get an Avengers page and it was like, oh, that's really cool. And then, a year or two would go by and he'd be like, you know what? I bet it's a really good, there it is. Yes. But there was a John Byrne Namor page that Anthony had. That was really lovely. One of the duo shade pages that had, so it was like 2 pages of art, with the John Byrne art on one, and then the John Byrne art, and then the duo shade on the other. It was really cool. And so I talked to my wife, oh, can I please get this? And I scraped together all the money and everything. And I ordered it, and he was like, I'm really sorry, that one's sold. And it was like at that point that I was like, well, that sucks. It's like, and so then I just sort of started taking, it took that to make the hook set, as it were. And then I started buying more on a more regular basis.
Okay. Just wanted to go quickly backwards for a moment. Marcus says that some are still waiting for an art catalog to come from San Mateo. Interesting that he says that, because so I have a friend, I've mentioned him before, Robert, lives next door to me. Through this wall is his bedroom. He has a colleague at work who back in the 80s was traveling through California and stopped in at San Mateo, because they used to have a retail store there. And he did some kind of deal where it was like, yeah, I can't afford all this art. So he did a deal where it was like, all right, I'll take enough art for the money I can give you right now, but hold the rest of it, hold the rest of the art for me when I get back to Montreal. Or at the time he might have been not in Montreal. I can't remember. No, probably not Montreal, probably Ontario at the time, but not that it matters. He goes, by the time I get back home, and I'll send you a check for the balance. And so he did that. He went back home, sent them the check, the balance, never got the rest of the artwork, and started phoning them and like, yeah, what's happening? And at first it was like, oh yeah, sorry, we'll get around to it. Oh yeah, no, my brother is going to ship it out very soon. And eventually it was just, no reason to keep. This guy's all the way up in Canada. He's not going to fly down here to try to do anything to us, right? So I guess that's what they figured. And yeah,
he's Canadian. They're all nice.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, but like ComicArtBoston and CJ said, yeah, those are fantastic pages, especially for your first pages.
Yeah, yeah.
And look, it's so funny. Speaking of the catalog, ComicArtBoston says, Marcus, they never sent me a catalog. They took his money and ran. Wow, what a shock. That was so funny. But who the hell knows? This was back in the 80s, Leopards cannot change their spots. How terrible. Exactly. That's well, no, they can change their spots these days, ComicArtBoston, in the sense that the theft, I believe, the theft part of all the shenanigans they're guilty of, the theft part has I think come to an end, I would assume, just because once the internet came into being, it became a lot easier for word to spread and word to get around. But pre-internet, nobody knew that you would have sent somebody a money order or check to a PO box or whatever, right? Nobody knew. Like you couldn't. If somebody screwed you that way, who are you going to complain to? Your own family and friends. That's about it, right? So
I think you could technically go to the post office and file things, but I'd never heard of that working out for anybody, or it was I remember thinking at the time, I'm talking myself out of this. Is this, and maybe I should just, I just couldn't. I had to, eat. So it was like I couldn't afford to lose that. But I've always wondered what pages they were.
Yeah. All right. So so those are your first couple of pieces. Can I tell you? Can I ask you how many? How long was it before you traded away that first one?
That was about 5 years ago. It was about 5 years ago.
Oh, about 5 years ago. Okay. Yeah. So by the way, just so everybody knows, and so I'm clear, have you essentially been a steady collector, more or less, since you first dipped your toes, or did you take like a long break somewhere along the way?
Long breaks, like just it would be kind of, I don't know, like some odd acne or something like that would come up. Like it's like, ooh, I just got a refund back from my taxes. It's like, hey, that's enough to get a thing. And then I'd be fine for a couple of years. And then it got really serious and steady. I don't know, around 2015, 2016 or something where it was it was crazy. It was until that first time that it was like, no, we'd love to sell you that page. We don't have that page. Someone else bought it. And I was like, well, good heavens, I can't let that happen. So it was like, I better pay more attention. It was on me for not acting sooner, so.
Okay. And so you would say that since around 2016, you've been a pretty regular, a steady collector?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I was interested in it, loved it. And just like, recognize them as treasures, and I just love them. But, it's probably like many people at the beginning. It was like, I just need, one piece from each artist that I like. And I understand that I broke that right out of the gate by getting the 2 Steve Ditko.
Okay. I see. Because I was going to ask you if you were one of those guys who, when you first sort of got serious about it, if your focus was, first of all, did you have a focus? And if you did, was it, I'll try to get something from my favorite artists, right? And I was going to ask it, even though I kind of knew that was the case, because, when I go to your gallery, anybody goes to your gallery, you're one of those guys who has everything listed by artist, right? So that right away, that kind of tells me, and you have, like a lot of people, only a few examples, sometimes only one, from each artist, other than a few exceptions where you might have an artist that you might have a dozen or 14 pieces of or whatever. But for most of the time, it looks like you've been kind of, you spot a new artist, you like his stuff, and then you think, I want to get an example of that guy's work. Is that basically what you've kind of been doing?
Sort of. A lot of it is, kind of collecting on a budget like everybody, and
Right.
and there's just so much. You got to cast the net wide. Sometimes it's thin, right? I didn't ever have a theme to my collecting until sort of recently when you come to that point, right, where you have to make the decision: am I going to collect things from when I was a kid, when I was younger, or am I going to kind of focus on modern things? Wasn't it Rick that in your last discussion with Hart said, affordable quality? And so when I got to that point, I sort of thought that I'm going to kind of I could either buy one piece that I love from, my childhood, or like maybe 4 really good ones, from now, that are modern art. And I just think that modern artists are so good. And the stories are really lovely. And, I just really, so I kind of chose to go in that direction. Because I thought that, even at the time, like this would have been, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. And it seems like a whole different world. Even since then, it felt like that was a little bit of a blind spot in most of the established dealers' vocabulary, or what they're familiar with. Like, they're really good from the history of comics up to, at that time, sort of like the mid or late 90s, where you could kind of tell they may not have read comics or whatever. And so you could still sort of score, some really nice examples for, a good deal, I felt. And so I was like, you know what, that window is probably closing. There might be 2 or 3 years left where they don't really know what they have. And so, I just tried to get as many of that. And then while I was doing that, I noticed that I'm an enormous Brian Michael Bendis fan, and he works with so many great artists that I just really love, and I would love to have examples of. And so it was like, well, that's kind of a fun intersection. And then my buddy Dr. Fantastic on Comic Art Fans, he was the person that I saw that just had unabashedly said, I love Brian Michael Bendis' New Avengers, and I want to get a page from every artist that he worked with on that title. And I was like, that's really cool. And I had a few, I don't know, 6 or 7 pages maybe that just happened to be Brian Michael Bendis page, like Stuart Immonen New Avengers, and Jim Cheung New Avengers, stuff I really loved. And I was like, well, that's kind of fun looking for that intersection. And Rubén, you actually sold me my first double page spread, my Mark Bagley, Andrew Hennessy Ultimate Spider-Man spread. Okay. And so then it got to be really fun. It's like, oh, well, I love Alex Maleev, right? And so then it was, he did Daredevil, and, it's been fun. I don't only collect that. I don't only buy books that Brian Bendis has written, or art from those books, but that's definitely the majority of it. And I just love those books. It was I think it was Don Johnson, going back to Comics Buyer's Guide, who said that Don Thompson, that said that the golden age of comics is whenever you're 12. I've heard that quote a lot, but that was the first person I remembered saying that. Can
you repeat that quote one more time, please?
Sure. I think he said the golden age of comics is whenever you're 12.
I've heard that, right? And and who knows, I may have read it myself in a CBG issue, but I love it more than anybody, than I guess than most people, because that was the age at which I started.
That's awesome.
Right? For me, I was 12, so that is so true to me, So yeah, and that's to this day, I'll say, if I had to pick my favorite year in comics, it was my first year, because it was, excitement. You're full of wonder, all that sense of wonder, and everything's new, and so I get it. But yeah, it's a good quote. I totally get it. Absolutely.
Well, those modern comics, like in the 90s, I was reading all those indies. Sorry, Stanley, I promise we won't stay on comics for very long. And then it was like my buddy calls me up and says, hey, have you heard about the Milligan Allred X-Force? Like, they are swearing off the comics code. And I was like, well, I got to try that out. And I fell in love with that. And then that was the Bendis Maleev Daredevil, I think, came out a couple months after that. And so I just started kind of getting back into comics there. And then those comics there, I was so excited by it. There's a difference between seeing a comic book movie and then a comic book movie by a guy who grew up reading, or guy or woman, anybody who grew up reading comic books, right? And all of a sudden, this sort of new wave of comics from Marvel in the late 90s, early 2000s, it struck me as these are the people that are probably about my age that have grown up reading these comics and loving them with the intense passion that I have, and they're telling these stories. And I was moved reading these comics when I was 30 or whatever, the same way that I was when I was 12. So it wasn't that big of a decision for me to go with, I want to collect more modern art rather than and now sometimes I question that. It's like, wow, I really wish I would have gotten a nice John Byrne Fantastic Four page when those were affordable. I'm holding out hope that maybe sometime, but I don't have any regrets. But that was kind of what made me decide to go on the more modern route, because I thought the comics were just as wonderful as when I was growing up. The art was easily as good, and it just was a choice that
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting. So Mickey says, for me, it was 14 or 15. Now, Mickey, are you talking about 14 or 15 when you first got into comics, discovered and got into comics? I'm assuming not artwork, right? And if it's comics, it's very interesting because for me, because I know a lot of people in the hobby, and I know about their backgrounds, and I've learned that a lot of these guys that I know in the hobby, they got their start in comics when they were 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, in single digit age range. To me, as much as I loved when I was 12 getting into it, I always felt like, wow, I missed out on like anywhere from like 3 to 6 years that all these other people I know, because they got in so much younger than I did when they discovered comics. I mean, in all fairness, I have a memory, vague, but I still have a memory of having a stack of comics in the house when I was around 5, between the ages of 5 and 7. I remember that one of the comics was a Thor comic, and that's all I remember. But for whatever reason, they didn't grab me at that age. They just, I would look at them, but I felt like it was too wordy to read at that age. And it wasn't until, I started reading, the humor comics, like the Harvey comics, Mad, Archie, stuff like that. I did read back when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever. But superhero, mainstream superhero stuff, it somehow didn't click for me until I was 12, So, see, Mickey says, so the golden age of comics for me. But that's the thing is that, your goal. Okay, so his golden age was at 14 or 15, but he started reading at 5 or 6. There's another young starter,
Yeah.
And ComicArtBoston, so he started reading comics from very young, but was really hooked on Marvel. That was around 7 or 8. Yeah, see, another single-digit age range, like I said. That's why for me, I felt like, wow, at 12 years old, I was kind of a bit of a late bloomer to it, Maki Poopa says, I read at 12, got serious about it. Interesting. So to me, you're even more of a late bloomer. You sort of got into it even later than I did. And I already felt I was late at 12. So that's interesting. That's cool. And Murdoch says, hey, Murdoch, good evening, by the way. I got into comics when I was 12. Yeah, so same age as me. My mom says straight out of comic books are why I can read it. Oh, straight out comics books, why I can read it. Yeah.
It wasn't Dr. Seuss for me. It was Stanley, Steve Ditko, and Jack Kirby. That was it. That's what I started reading. I remember sitting on my preschool. There were these pocket books, right? I'm sorry, Stanley. Not we won't spend very much time on comics, I promise. There were these little pocket books that were reprints.
Stanley's getting pissed.
Oh man, what have I done, Rubén? So sorry. There were reprints of like the first 6 issues of Spider-Man, and there was a Hulk one and a Fantastic Four, and I had a bunch of them. And I remember sitting there on the steps of my preschool looking at Spider-Man #1 and thinking, you know what? I've looked at this. I know the story really well. I should actually read it one of these times. And that was sort of then that it struck me that, wow, it's told me this story like I got it. Like it was kind of weird at that age to be thinking that. But I remember thinking, so I've understood this story and I've never read it, huh? And so it was just just even this little pocketbook, like it's this big. It's very, very small. And so all of the panels are really super tiny on it. And it's like, I probably couldn't read it without my glasses now. It's really, really small. But it was the first 6 issues of Spider-Man. It was the first 6 issues of Fantastic Four. And there were subsequent volumes, and I think the Doctor Strange, the second Doctor Strange one was an enormous influence on me. And I mean, they started at Strange Tales number 130. And that was where, it began that long, Baron Mordo gets the power of Dormammu, or Dormammu loans him the power and he goes hunting Doctor Strange. And it was like, it blew my mind. It was this long form narrative in just these tiny little, 8 or 10 page chapters. I hadn't read, even though I'd been reading sequential comics, there was nothing quite like this. It was one story that just, I loved it. It was just, it blew me away. Loved it.
Stanley.
Pull the plug. You can mute me, Rubén, and just make funny noises when
I know that as the host, it is my job to keep the guests focused, but I am genuinely interested in the talk about certain people and when they got into comics, and so I wouldn't mind hearing more every now and then more about the comics aspect and not always the art. So that's why I'm not reining him in, and I'm allowing him to go off on these comic book tangents. So
I'll try to.
But that's fine. That's fine. Murdoch, I just wanted to ask you: are you back from Guantanamo? Are you writing and watching from there, or are you back now, or what's going on? Let me know. I'm curious. And oh, by the way, and yes, they were entertaining enough for him to keep his ADHD under control. So it even had another awesome side effect, right? Like side benefit, if you will. For that. John, good evening, John. For me, it was 14 years of age. That's when I was earning my own money. Okay, that makes sense. And comics is where it went. There you go. Perfect. Another leg. But now look at NSN art. I became a regular comic reader at 19.
What were you reading, NSN? What were you reading?
Wow. Yeah, and
what brought you in? What made me go, you know what? That's what I need to read. Was it indies? Was it Marvel? Was it
exactly? Like what? How did it turn out to be? Somebody might have. I'm guessing somebody introduced them. Hey, try to read this or something. I bet you it was one of those kind of things, right? Hey, check this out and give it a
Stanley,
read.
it's not me this time.
CJ says my brother always had DC when I was really young. Marvel is what I got into at 10. Okay. And Marcus says Mad was as prevalent as Archie back in the day. That was for me. It sure was,
Yeah, totally.
I mean, again, I did
big paperbacks, right? Or not the big paperbacks, but again, like the pocket books,
the pocket digests. Yeah.
And they had all the original stuff, like just all the old classics. Yeah.
ComicArtBoston says comics and original comic art are inextricably related in one's experience. Yeah, Stanley.
Don't take that from him, Stanley.
You see, Stanley? Are you going to take that, Stanley? Look at ComicArtBoston, what he's saying to you. And look what he said. This is a really fun session. It's such pure passion, but it is. It's what we all love. It's what we all grew up on. That's why, right? So it's okay to go off tangent once in a while. Carl says, introduced to comics at about 5, very, very early. Bought my first OA at about 35. Nice. Okay.
Exactly. Sort of like me.
Okay, 50 and 55.
A little younger, but I mean, but right around there. Our timelines are very close.
Still on the island. Okay. I don't know if I should say, oh, sorry to hear that. I feel like sorry to hear that didn't sound right because it's like I'm offending you because that's where you work, But well, I hope things are going good on the island, my friend. So NSN says, I had 4 comics as a kid, but didn't have any funds until I joined the Marines. Oh, you're a former Marine, are you? Interesting. Nice. Okay.
Thank you for your service. And what did you read? Like, what flicked that switch? What made you like, did one of the other people have a book that you liked or something? Or was it like, oh man, 300 is awesome, or, or going, did you go indie? Did you go mainstream? I think it's
comics are the peanut butter, art the jelly. And look, Stanley says you need a separate comic book channel. But I know that JK means just kidding, so I'll let you get away with that. I'm not opening up a second channel. Forget that. But you know what? Maybe what I should do is I have so far 7 different types of shows that I do, right? maybe I should start an 8th one, which is just about comics. And we talk about just comics. Hey, what are you guys reading lately? Are you reading anything good? Maybe we give each other ideas as to, hey, what we should try reading lately. I don't know. You guys that comment the most frequently, let me know. I mean, I don't know that I'd want to do a whole show on just comic, but let me know if you'd want to do something like that. Or let me know at the very least, are you cool with us going off on these comic-related tangents? And, I don't want you to be people dropping out just because we're not talking about art. But definitely, and I certainly do want to stay as an original art channel.
We will do that for sure.
But
if I have a friend my age who is just sort of starting to get into comics for the first time, and so my friend and I are putting together reading lists and stuff for him. And so if you have any great suggestions, should you wish, I would be grateful for any because you cats are the coolest out there. So your tastes are awesome, and that's what I want to introduce my friend to. So. Please, if you don't mind, just leaving a note in the chat if you think of something that you think that this guy will really like. He likes science fiction and smart comics, like good stuff, meaty comics. And so there you go.
So and NSN tells you now that nice. He wanted to read them, but he had no money for them. And then he veered towards the independents and his love for Vertigo. And nice. If I'm not mistaken, NSN, aren't you a big Preacher fan? I think you're a big Preacher fan. I think you love Preacher, right? I think you love Preacher. Let me know. Or let us know. Sorry. Rubén, the Reader's Digest. Yeah. Hey, man, what do you... Yeah, I'm trying. I just want to have fun with my friends, Shooting the breeze with friends. That's what it's all about. Right. But I just want to know that you guys are interested, because if you're not, I'd rather you tell me that you're not so I can change, rather than you just keep it to yourselves and then just start dropping out quietly, But ComicArtBoston is laughing and says Stanley's enjoying the show. I know he is. He just likes to complain. Come on. And Rick says, read Scalped if over 18 years of age. Oh, really? It's really that adult? Interesting.
It's a good one. It's a good one. That's Jason Aaron's first one, right? That's Jason Aaron's first.
Yeah, I intended to read it many years ago, and I actually have it on my computer. I can read it. I don't know. I just never, something about it. I don't know what it is, but whenever I thought, hey, what should I read? I'm like, oh, I guess start giving Scalped a try, and I don't know. Somehow it never pulls me in to want to even start giving it a shot. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe one day.
I have the floppies. I'll need to get the trade to loan to him. But yeah, that's a good suggestion. Thank you, Rick. Rick has great taste. He has a great gallery. So many of these people have.
For sure. A lot of these guys have great galleries, for sure. Yeah. Jason says, composition, pencils, inks. What makes you choose a piece? Jason's another guy like Jason's like Stanley. Jason doesn't want anything to know about comics. He just wants to get to the art.
Sure, that's a good question. You know what?
It is a good question.
It is a great question. Normally I make a decision really fast, like sort of, when Felix is having one of his awesome drops, right? And you have a very short amount of time to make a decision or something. I've just gotten in the habit of scanning really, really quickly. And if there's something bold about the composition that catches my eye, or about the layout or something, that's what really intrigues me. I don't know. It's kind of always sort of a different thing. A great inker is really awesome. I think it's really fun to look at. I don't know, Mark Bagley or somebody who has had an enormous amount of work produced. That's all really great, and it's really fun looking at the different inkers, right, to see all the different the different touches that people add. And so sometimes, you could, I don't know, those are all great things. Sometimes it's the pencils and sometimes it's the composition. I think that probably I'm first drawn to it by the composition if I'm picking a piece for myself, but it's sometimes the stress is off when you go into a friend's gallery or you see something posted, and it's like, oh my goodness, that's just a lovely piece. And you can just sort of sit back and take it in without going into it with any kind of preconceived, notions of I really want to get into the pencils. It's like, oh, what did Aranga post, man? I want to check this out. Oh, Cable, No, I'm kidding. But it would be, you know, or like Mikhail is a great example. Mikhail has just a fantastic gallery that I always learn something going to, and oh, I need to check out that book, you know. And same with Rick and you know, FM. I mean, just all these great and Marcus. I always learn something from Marcus's posts, and it's just so much fun to learn all this stuff. And then I just get so excited, and so I leave long comments. But it's just, yeah, that's a great question, Jason. I'm sorry I'm not answering that question. I don't know. It's a little bit of everything. It just
everything.
I guess something that sparks you and gets you thinking about it, right? Yeah. And when you have the luxury of stepping away from it for a while, right? Which doesn't always happen in Felix's drops, but you know, you see something online, or there's the little corner of the internet, or Albert's site, or, you know, Anthony's site, or something that you could tell nobody's gone there for a while, because it's like, that seems like a really good deal for that piece. Not that it's not a good deal normally, but it's like, that seems like it was priced a long time ago, right? And it hasn't been updated. And you can step away a little bit and think about it. It's like, do I want that? You know, and then it allows the piece to sort of blossom, and then it can be something completely different than what drew you to the piece originally. It was like, wow, I really like the blacks on that piece. And then it's like, you know, but the composition is really where it's at, because that's what makes the whole thing, you know, really hum, or something like that. I don't know. Sorry. That was,
yeah, no, that's fine. Let me follow that up. You mentioned earlier that you just, because of your love for Brian Michael Bendis's writing, that you tend to want to get art from all the stuff that he does, right?
If I like a lot of modern artists that he's worked with, and so it makes it a fun. It's like, Jim Cheung is awesome. I'm going to go find a Jim Cheung piece, and wait, he did those issues with, you know, with Brian Bendis, and so you can sort of start there, and it doesn't limit my search, but it's a nice starting place, and then if you find something that you like, it is a twofer, you know.
Right. So I guess my follow-up question would be, though, given that that's the case with, at least with Brian Michael Bendis, so would you say that you're more of a, in terms of as an art collector, a lot of your collecting is done based on who wrote the stories that the art is from, or is that does that only seem to apply with Brian Michael Bendis in particular, and then for everybody else it's just whatever attracts you visually? Or
no, I think it's the opposite. Sort of, it's like, oh man, I love Mike Deodato, and he did that great run with Bendis on this. So it's like, I always start, when I go on, you know, searching for something, I start with the artist and think, you know, wow, it would be, you know, I wonder what's out there from this artist or whatever. And then it's sort of like, well, you know, did they work with him? And that's not the only parameter, you know, but it certainly is. I just, you know, yeah, I love the Brian Bendis comics and the artists that he's worked with. I mean, it's just a killer list that continues to grow. Of you know, fantastic artists that, you know, any collection would benefit from having, you know, some of the people that he's worked with, you know, having a piece or two in your collection by those people. So it starts with the artist always, and then it's sort of like, oh, well, look at that.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. I you know, David wants us to know he's here, but he's also watching the Padres game.
Awesome.
In case we were wondering, you know, in case anybody was like, hey, where's David Matheny? We haven't heard from him. We haven't seen any comments from him in the last few minutes.
But so, are they talking about comics again? Okay, I'm going to turn it down, and you know, like how you watch the game, you turn on the radio. It's like the opposite. Like they're turning us down and then watching the Padres game. So there we go. That's it. They're talking. Oh, they're not. Okay, I'll turn that back up. Talking about.
All right, cool. So I'm curious. Is there any do you like within your current collection? Let me back up. I'll ask that after. Do you or do you not have a holy grail as such, as I define it, as you know how I define it? Do you have that or no?
It depends, I suppose, in terms of what you mean by like. is a Holy Grail, is that like one piece?
So it's one that deep down in your heart, in your mind, that nothing, no other piece you can realistically ever acquire could ever mean as much to you as that one piece. In other words, it's clearly that one piece above all else that has the most meaning for you to own.
Right. The it would probably be a Steve Ditko Doctor Strange page. Could even or like a John Byrne, like the cover to Fantastic Four 263 or something, like some amazingly composed thing that featured the Thing. Like something like that would
okay. So
but it'd probably be the Ditko if I had to choose like one, the piece that they're going to come and they're going to, find in your mummified hands, right? I mean, you're going to die. It would probably be a Steve Ditko Doctor Strange page.
Okay. So I guess the answer for me, as I define it, the answer would be no, because it's close, but it's not specific, right? So what I'm saying is there's no specific page that you know of that exists that, boy, that one page would mean more to me than anything else I could ever hope to acquire. You're just saying, in general, any Ditko Doctor Strange page would make you happy enough, and it would mean more to you than pretty much everything else you own. But there's no specific page from any specific issue.
I could probably go and pick one, but yeah, I suppose the fact that I haven't,
right,
probably answers that question. But yeah, probably I don't know. There's no, I can't. Like, I can think of several, but I don't have. I think the one, but like Fantastic Four 263, that cover with Ben, and Johnny, with the car that had exploded, and the lighting and the composition is just it's just so good, so good.
But CJ, let us know what it is, man. Let us know what it is. Unless you think there's actually a chance you may get it one day, so you want to keep it hush hush.
Is it the one that
then I understand.
Showed on his San Diego preview, that beautiful 9-panel. I mean, yeah, that one. Oh, mercy! I need a.
Interesting that more because we can all sort of have various ways of defining Holy Grail, right?
Right.
See, yeah. I wouldn't define it quite the way Marcus is saying, only because it depends. Marcus, are you sort of saying that, something you trade the rest of your collection for, if the values sort of didn't come into play? In other words, if the stuff all had zero monetary, it's a huge hypothetical, right? Because if you do say the hypothetical of, yeah, let's say this stuff had no value, no value, then I would say, yeah, sure, you trade the rest of your collection for, but it's not realistic, right? Because we know not only does it have value, it has tons of value. So therefore, for me, I would never, knowing what the rest of my collection might be worth, like I would never ever give it all up to acquire my Holy Grail if I knew that my Holy Grail was worth way less than the rest of my collection. You know what I mean?
I think Marcus was just, I don't mean to speak for Marcus. I think that he was using that as the qualifier. Like, I asked, what does a Holy Grail mean? And I was honestly thinking in those terms, like what Marcus had said. That was exactly what I was thinking. Like, what would I trade, everything I have for?
Right.
And I don't know if I would for the burn as much. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But but not that anyone's offering. That's not what I'm saying. But for like a Ditko Doctor Strange, I think that is a really good barometer, like what Marcus said.
Right. Yeah. So ComicArtBoston says, I don't think that I would have a Grail in that sense of only one page. He has several Grails based on nostalgia, not too many though. And he follows it up by saying, Jason, I think that's where you're at as well. Answer that. I don't know.
Yeah. Sounds good. Anytime I can be more in line with Comic Art Boston, I know I'm doing something right. So,
And even NSN says the same thing. Too much amazing art to only have one piece on the wall.
True.
Okay. Yeah, but again, see, Marcus, for me, this is I avoid going towards this end of that topic with the whole Grail thing, because to me this falls under the category of the unrealistic, right? Because none of us can afford that. So even if it became available, it's easy to say, even me, my holy grail is the Hulk 272 cover. But of course, I grew up, when I was 12, I think within the first year of me being in the hobby, Marvel Tales began reprinting Amazing Spider-Man from AF-15 and ASM-1 onwards. So I was like, wow, I was like a pig in shit, so happy, like, wow, this is so cool. And I felt like I was actually, there at the beginning, and so I have a lot of good feelings for that stuff too. And of course, I would love to have that cover, but it's not realistic. So therefore, I never talk about that. I prefer to deal with more. Yeah, like he's saying it's hypothetical. I get it. I obviously I get it. That's why when I bring up the topic myself, I prefer to sort of keep within the realm of more reality. Because we can all start when you get to the hypotheticals. And I've seen this happen online before. Everybody starts throwing out all the obvious examples. AF-15, Amazing Spider-Man 1, FF1, FF48, we know what the answers are all going to be. So there's no point in even talking about that. Everybody's going to put out all those key issues. That's why it's more interesting to me, I think, to stay within reality, within knowing what we can or may be able to afford if we had to stretch and really reach hard for that thing if it became available. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would rather have a Ditko Doctor Strange than a Ditko Spider-Man, personally. That's me. I know I'm in the vast minority, but if it were like Amazing Fantasy 15 versus, another piece, I'd probably choose another piece. Just me personally, which is I know I'm bonkers, and probably it's the, not the. Yeah,
you are who you are. That's what it is. Everybody's got their interests. CJ, so he's saying it's the cover to ASM 134. Oh, the one with isn't that the one with the spider in the middle and all the different images between the spider legs? Is not.
That's 121.
So he sent me when I was 14. It's in his vault. Oh, okay. So he's got that one. Okay. Yeah, well, good luck. Hopefully it comes out of the vault someday.
That's tarantula, right? 124 or 134. Excuse me, I just Googled it.
That's why I'm saying it sounds like that's the one with the tarantula in the middle with the legs and all these images between the tarantula legs. Or
isn't that one 121?
Yeah, no, 121 is the death of Gwen Stacy.
No, right. Yeah, no, I got it.
Yeah. CJ says it's the tarantula one. Yeah, that's it. So Jason, we're at the 1 hour 43-minute mark. We're gonna bring this to a close soon.
Sure.
Just to do everybody a favor and keep this to like no more than 2 hours, which I rarely can accomplish. So for these final 15 minutes or so, are there any pieces that really speak to you in your collection that maybe you'd want to tell us why they speak to you and what you love about them that you want me to I can show? I know we didn't plan this, guys, just so you know. I like to do things that are off the cuff, off the top of my head. So it's not like I've given Jason any time to prepare for this or whatever, but I'm just sort of throwing it out there. If there was, just things that come to mind that you really like, and you don't have to say a whole bunch of, but we can show the viewers a few pieces without having to speak too much on them if you don't want to. But
sure, yeah. The excuse me. I would say one of them would be the Jim Cheung New Avengers double page spread from New Avengers 40. Excuse me. And that one was special because it's a lovely piece of art, but when my son was born, we were in the hospital for 19 days, and
wow, 19, right?
Yeah,
wow.
It was really hard, and he's fine. Everything came out just great, but it was really hard, and it was really scary. And looking at the timeline of everything. I mean, it's a gorgeous piece of art. And the details and the depth of, you know, all those characters is just really great, even down to the fingernails of, you know, the scroll at near up and close up and the thing. But looking back, you know, knowing the lead time that they need to produce these things, it may very well have been that they were working on this like the very day my son was born, and there's no way to know. But of course, that's exactly what happened. But I just love the piece. There was also a big. I used to play Hero Clicks with my buddies, and we had an enormous game that was, you know, everybody brought, you know, their biggest Avengers team and their biggest whatever team, and I just showed up with a mess of scrolls, and so this sort of made me think of just, you know, good times with my friends. But it was like my son's. He could have been born the day that either Jim was working on it or that John was inking it.
Right.
And I just
it's phenomenal, by the way. I mean, yeah,
it's beautiful. It is so beautiful.
John, I was gonna say, it looks like John Dell micro those micro pens that he uses. I mean, some of the cross hatching is and is so fine line.
Well, the craziest thing, Rubén, is on panel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the black panel, the all black panel.
Yeah.
If you look in the upper left hand corner, there's actually hatching there. Like as published, it's solid black, but it's like, there's some light getting through that bag that they just put over the Skrull Queen's head. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just insane. It just is. And then even, I just love it. So many, such
gorgeous.
It is really. That was one actually that I saw on sale or for sale on CAF for a really long time, and I just never had the money to get it. And then it disappeared, and I was heartbroken. And then it showed up on Anthony's site. And so I was able to send him a bunch of slab comics and some money and stuff like that. So I was able to get it. And I just feel very lucky. ComicArtBoston, right? That's really great. And another one actually, yes, Super Inks. Yeah. I was so lucky. So lucky. Another one is actually a Michael Gaydos double page spread from New Avengers 38, just 2 months before that. When I got my son home from the hospital after 19 days in the hospital, my mother-in-law, it was just so awesome and so kind. While I was in the hospital with my son, she went and she would get my, monthly box of comics. And so when I got home, finally, there was a stack of comics there. And the very first thing I did, I laid down on the couch with my son, who was, who weighed 6 pounds. Like it was a crazy time. And I sat down and I read New Avengers number 38, like this issue. And so the fact that this page, that I'm able to kind of showcase that in my gallery, it just is really, really special to me, because this is like the first comic I read with my son when he was, 19 days old, 20 days old. It was he doesn't remember very much about it. But,
no, but it's got that's good sentimental meaning. I mean, it means a lot when you bring a life into this world. And man, there's your emotions are all over the place when you first have a child, right? And
for sure.
So I can and in your case, the fact that it was touch and go there for 19 days. I can only imagine, because I did not experience that, but you can imagine it must be very, very difficult to go through a lot of, like I said, emotions. And so this is the type of stuff that when you can I understand why stuff like this will always stay with you, because of the connection that it has to that time, to those moments.
And it's also from a great comic. Like, I love the lead up to Secret Invasion. So I mean, it just was all that stuff. There's the David Finch double page spread that I have from Avengers is another one that I got really lucky. I got that one from Albert, and that was just really lovely. That was right before he did his Dueling Dealers debut.
Really?
Yeah.
David Finch one?
It's David Finch. And I just got the feeling, I could be totally wrong, but looking at some of the other things that he brought to that, thank you, ComicArtBoston. I just think that, man, he might have brought, if I hadn't purchased it from him, like right before that happened, that episode of Dueling Dealers. He may have sold that on Dueling Dealers or whoever. I have no way of knowing that, and he may not have even had any designs to do that. But I just had a hunch that he would. And that was one I had wanted a David Finch piece. I actually wanted a new Avengers piece, but this is just insane. Just incredible inks by Danny Mickey, like up to the texture on the tires, like the tire treads, kind of the undercarriage of the vehicle. I mean, it's just insane. And then She-Hulk. Oh man, there was someone that left a comment. It may have been Rick. It was like on this piece, and they said, it's there's nothing beautiful about it, but it's a gorgeous spread or something like that. And I was like, that is perfect, and
let me see.
And that just, yeah, that's the way to get all those comments, right? You sit and write them yourself, I guess. Yeah, sorry about that. I just get, again, so
Rick says, such ferocity, gorgeous pencils and inks. Cool how the vehicle fender overlaps the inset panels.
Thanks, Rick, for the comment. But it wasn't that one. And then
okay.
Yeah, and of course, Marcus with it.
Not going to read them all, of course. We don't have time for that, but
yeah. We may have been down
yeah,
no, but so yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many you got time for, Ruben. But
no. If there's I'll if the viewers want to see, that's ultimately it's do they want more talking or do they want more viewing? I mean, if they want to see more, you typically, I'm always, believe it or not, I mean, I'm always concerned, right? My concern is always that they're people are going to be like, okay, you don't show enough art when you talk to like people on your one-on-ones or your round tables,
Right. Yeah, I'm a huge Phil Foglio fan, and I've got some pages from Myth Adventures. I know that's probably off the beaten path for. Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much for
and yes, in. that was a monstrous looking She-Hulk. Yeah.
And actually, I just brought that in. Rose City Comic Con happened 2 weekends ago, and Brian Bendis was there, so I was able to bring him in a lot of this art, and he was very, very generous with his time, and we had a great time showing all these, because I brought in basically all of my stuff, almost that he hadn't signed, and we got to that one. And he was like, whoa. And he said that page had been coming up in his feed, not the original, but I mean, because people didn't know She-Hulk like that, because they are learning about her through Disney Plus and are used to the kind of the lawyer Jen, and so that was fun. It was that was really, but the David Finch, that was something that was really important to me, and I was really felt very, very lucky to have that one. Jason.
Jason just wants to piss off Stanley,
That's awesome.
And what are you saying, ComicArtBoston? Off topic, but I recently finally also got a Grummet page as well.
Awesome.
Interesting. Okay, you'll have to tell me, email me, let me know, or send it to me by email and show me the scan. Let me see what you got. And did you get it private? Anyway, you can tell me privately, I guess. Tell me by email. Show it to me and tell me the story behind it. I'm waiting for some Grummet art in the mail. It's a long weekend over here. It's Thanksgiving weekend in Canada. And so I will not be getting it until Tuesday, but I'll be getting some beautiful, tasty Grummets as well. So, yeah, very, very, very happy. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it. So no, yeah. Look, there's only a few minutes. You want to point out another couple of pieces at all, or I try, CJ. Come on, I try, man.
Well, first, thank you everybody for staying on this long. Good heavens. Some of the Phil Foglio Myth Adventures pages I really like. Those. I first ran into Phil Foglio's work. He was doing in Dragon Magazine, which was like a TSR official magazine of Dungeons and Dragons and role playing and everything like that. They had it was a monthly magazine called Dragon Magazine. Probably everyone knows about it. And
I wasn't into that stuff,
right.
Fantasy stuff or whatever, but even I remember that very clearly. Yeah, I used to see it at the store.
I think it was like insanely expensive, like $3 a copy or something. This was like in 1983 or 84. And then in the back of that, they would have a couple single page, sometimes double page cartoons. You know, there was Wormy, and there was What's New with Phil and Dixie by Phil Foglio. And that was the first place I had ever seen Phil Foglio's work. And then I've loved his work, you know, all my life, and went through, you know, and he did Myth Adventures, which was
do you have any, is any of the Phil Foglio pages your favorite or above all else? Or no, not really.
The mighty Yokuri just traded me, or not traded me. It was allowed me to purchase one from him that is probably my favorite one of the ones that I have.
Is it in your gallery?
It is. Tim Sale. It's Foglio. Is it Folio?
Yeah, I know. I'm already there, but you got to tell me which page is it.
It's the one from issue. I think it's the one from issue 3. The
3.
Oh, no, I 5.
What's
it's the one with it has
all the blacks?
It has Gleep the Dragon, and it has
the dragon.
The funny
with all the blacks. Oh God! But you gotta. I can't believe you're gonna make me show this horrific scan. Oh, how dare you!
Which one?
How dare you?
Oh no, it's not the one with the big dragon. There's a little dragon, and there's Oz. He's kind of looks, you know, like a green pumpkin with ears, you know, a little bit kind of.
Let me see.
But, that was very nice of Yo to reach out to me.
I don't know. Steel demon, God's a demon. Eat steel demon. I don't know.
Not that one. That was from number 2. I think my monitor just died, and so I can't look it up. It was it might be the very first one, because it was the last one that I made.
Hold on. You know what? Let me just yeah, he says, Rick says, Gleep the Dragon.
That's it. Yeah, Rick is another Myth Adventures fan. Yes, sir.
And here, let me show you the page, and you can tell me which one it is.
That's
all right. So here we go.
Yeah, in the upper left, 625.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was just lovely. It's got, you know, all the comedy in it. And this was Tim Sale's first job, actually, was inking Myth Adventures. And this is a Sale inked issue. Yeah. He did the first 8. He did the first, and he did the lettering. And it was really cool. I met him a couple times before his unfortunate passing, and I brought in some of these pages that I had him sign, and it spurred a great conversation. He was saying it was his first job. He was so excited, and Phil had not told him that he was going to be inking. You know, and these are twice up pages. These are, you know, really huge. They're really, really big, and it's just a great story, and we you know, had some good laughter about, because he hadn't been credited in the second paperback, and I brought that and I showed that to him, and I mean, it was really it's just a lovely page. It was just a one of my favorite stories, and Phil Foglio is one of my favorites. Very cartoony. His storytelling is great. It's a fun cartoony style. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Thank you, Rick. I was really lucky. And on most of those, it turned out that, you know, Yo picked up a couple of those, I think, and I was the underbidder on a bunch. So when I saw it in his gallery, I just sort of reached, oh, congratulations, man. I didn't any. So when it came time for him to make a move on another piece, he very kindly thought of me, and I will be forever grateful.
All right. Well, guys, I think that's going to bring us to the end of the show, because it is 2 hours. There's plenty more that I can talk with Jason. Jason and I have spoken on web chats for hours on end, so there's plenty more. But of course, I want to keep this to 2 hours. Just real quick to let you guys know, next week's show, I'm going to be doing another one of these Andrew Hennessy sales, and that'll be at the usual 8:00 p.m., 5:00 Pacific time. And to be honest, I gotta be I'm always honest with you guys. You guys know that. I don't even feel like doing it. Okay, to be perfectly honest, I don't even feel like I really don't feel like it. I want to talk more and have people talk with me. I feel, given what's going on with Andrew Hennessy, and he's finally given me the sort of, yes, send me back the art kind of thing. And so during the week, in the days following next week's show, I will be packing up all the unsold stuff from the 4 July shows that I did. And I just feel, as part of it's my obligation. I feel obligated that I should, knowing that this stuff will end up in his closet, right? In stacks, boxes in his closet. And I'm a believer that the art should be shown. It should be, I'd rather it be owned by collectors than in the closet of one person. I feel obligated to have to at least offer this stuff one more time. And as I had mentioned back in July, when I did the 4 shows, after I think the 3rd show, I mentioned that I'd looked through some other portfolios and found enough stuff that I felt like it was worth offering again. And I pulled enough stuff for 2 more shows. But given that I'm not really in the mood to even do it anymore, I'm not sure I'll do a second, like in other words, this will be the 5th Hennessy show. I don't know if I'll want to do a 6th. We'll see how the next week's show goes, and I'll decide then. But I feel like I have to at least give people one last chance to pick up some stuff. There's still going to be some cool Bagley Hulk pages. So ComicArtBoston, if you're in the market for some more Bagley Hulk, not quite as good as those that you got, but they're still, good, and they'll be cheaper. So, hopefully you guys will tune in next week. And hey, if you don't want to see one final one after that, just let me know, and that's cool. Thank you, ComicArtBoston. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it. And thank you, CJ. Appreciate you always.
Thank you.
Murdoch, is that the artwork posted? Is that artwork posted someplace? What artwork are you referring to, Murdoch? That you're talking about? Sorry, Murdoch, I was behind. And Jason, good night to you. Thank you so much. Hopefully you'll tune in next week. And thank you. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you. And plans for artist interviews. I mean, I don't know if I just want to do straight artist interviews. I'm thinking about it, Stanley. I've been thinking about it for a few months now, so I can't say yes or no just yet. So we'll see. But I appreciate the interest and the ideas. Thank you. And thanks, David. Happy postseason to all. Go Padres.
Thanks,
and thank you, Rick. I really appreciate you as well.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. So, Jason, stick around, and I will speak to you in a minute.
You bet. Thank you, Rubén. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Hope everybody that went to New York Comic Con had a great time. And Branislav, get back to work. And I'm out.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it as always. And as I said, just look really quick for those of you still hanging out. Let me give you a little preview. You already know what's coming next week is another Hennessy sale. But here's the preview of upcoming shows. And so the week after the next is another Comic Art one-on-one. That'll be the 3rd one. That'll be with Simon K. Simon's a fairly new collector, now moving in on almost 3 years. And some of you may remember I appeared on Comic Art Live with Simon when he did a chat. And at the time, he was probably 6 months in. And I thought it'd be a good idea to follow up to see, over what's how things have changed for him in the hobby, going from a 6-month collector to a 3-year collector. And then, of course, the week after that, another one-on-one. So it's going to be a lot of chatting this month, guys. And that'll be with another newer collector, also in the hobby for about 3 years, the wonderful, very exuberant and excited Ian Saint. So that should also be a lot of fun. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate you all as always. Really appreciate all the people who subscribe, all the people who hit the like button, and especially also all of you on Rewind who watch this all the time. Really appreciate it. Maki Pupu, thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate you. Paulie P joined late, right as we're leaving, but oh well, what are you gonna do? I thank you for remembering at the last second. So thank you very much. And yeah, so sales time next week, everybody, and then a couple of one-on-ones, 2 consecutive one-on-ones after that. So please tune in, and I hope to see as many of you as possible there. So that's it. I will leave you again with the upcoming show schedule, and that's it. We'll talk next week. All right. Thanks, everyone. Peace.